I'm Caleb.
I'm Isaac.
And my name is Ryan. We are the King's Advocate podcast. We are just three brothers in Christ who are wanting to talk about the Bible. We're not scholars or anything like that. We just want to get more used to and more comfortable with talking about the Bible. So, as promised for this week, I wanted to talk a little bit about heaven. And this is definitely a little bit of a mysterious subject in some respects as to obviously what it looks like, what it's going to be like, where it's going to be, all those different things. But there's a few really solid things that I think that we can draw comfort and strength from. So, number one for us to remember is while we are here, heaven is our goal. It's one of our goals. We talked a little bit last week about how there's pillars to our dedication, pillars to our faith. One of them is our love for Christ, and that's definitely part of the reason we do what we do. But also another reason is we want to make it to heaven so we can spend eternity with Him. Mm-hmm. And Caleb, you brought this up last week, 1 Corinthians 9:24 through 27. It says, "Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize? So run that ye may obtain, and every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I not as one that beateth the air, but I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway." So what Paul is talking about there is what the goal is. And the goal is that crown of life, is that immortality and that eternity with Christ and with God. And that's what our goal is today. That hasn't changed. That's still what we're working for, and that's what makes all the trials and tribulations that we will face as a Christian. That's what makes all of them, easier to bear and worth it.
On this verse, have you ever watched a sporting event like a race, let's say for the Olympics, and seen the people after the race is over and the guy that won, how relief instantly floods over them. It's instant, I did it, I won, and I've got this new trophy. I'm finally accomplished what I've been running for, what I've been practicing for. I think Paul's regarding heaven in the same way, where it's over, the race has been run, and finally we can rest. Finally we've received our trophy, we've received our crown, and we can finally stop running.
Or if you personally have been a part of any sort of competition where you were just putting it all out there and exhausting yourself, and then you win, and maybe you didn't, maybe you're a loser, but maybe you win, and you get that feeling that I can rest now. That's a cool feeling.
Yeah.
Well, and Jesus also he pointed us towards this goal. We also mentioned this verse a little bit last week, but in Matthew 18:8-9, he talks about entering into life halt or maimed. If you have something that offends you, a right hand or an eye that offends you, cut it off, pluck it out, cast it away from you. And he talks about that because he is pointing us towards the goal, which is life everlasting. And he does it again in John 14 and verse 1. It says, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And whither I go, you know, and the way you know." So, Jesus he consistently pointed, he pointed his apostles and his followers in the direction of, this is where you need to go. This is what the goal is. This is the end point for you guys. Is life eternal, is heaven.
I think it's interesting too, in verse 3, he said, "I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also." And I'm reading New King James, if anyone's confused about the wording. But
that's probably the only, just to point out quickly, that's probably the only versions we'll use during these podcasts. If we read a verse or something, it's either going to be from King James or New King James, right?
Right.
For the most part.
And that's what we have right now. So.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that he told them, not only is there going to be a place for you where I'm going to build it in my Father's house, there's many rooms, there's room for you, but I'm going to be there, and you're going to be with me. And he's talking to the people that have been with him for as long as Jesus has been ministering, for as long as Jesus has been traveling. They witnessed him die, and he said, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to come back, and you're going to be with me again.
I think I heard an example in a sermon a long time ago. I can't remember who gave this sermon, so can't give credit. But one of the examples that this person used was, the way that we need to think about death and think about the afterlife is kind of the same way that a dog thinks about going through a door to his master. The dog doesn't know what's on the other side of the door. The dog doesn't know, what it's going to be like to pass through the door. The only thing that the dog knows is that his master is on the other side. And I thought that was a pretty, silly, maybe a little bit, but powerful point. Like, yeah. I don't know what death is going to be like. I'm kind of worried it might hurt, but but we shouldn't be afraid, because it's the goal that we've been working for our entire lives, and Jesus is there on the other side, so it can't be bad,
Yeah.
That example has kind of stuck with me and kind of made me be a little bit ashamed at times whenever I worried about, I don't really want to die because I'm worried that death might hurt.
It's a scary thought, but I mean, yeah, like you said, when you think about it in the right perspective, death is kind of it's the door, really is what it is. The doggy door, if you will, to to see our master. That's really, to see the guy that died.
Good boy.
To see the guy that bought your salvation, that saved you from yourself. You get to go and see him, and it doesn't matter what shape or color, size the door is, how heavy it is. You push through it to see your master, to see that person.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about how much I would love to have been in the apostles' place at times, to meet Jesus, to hear his voice and talk to him and be able to, call him master and touch him, but
or even one of the people in the crowd.
Yeah. I mean, and this kind of leads into the second point that I want to make. Heaven is going to be worth it. It's going to be worth the wait. It's going to be worth the shame that people may put us through. It's going to be worth any pain that we face. Like, heaven is going to be worth it. And he promises us that time and time again. In 1 Corinthians 2 and verse 9, I think it's Paul writing here, but he quotes Isaiah 64 and verse 4, and he says, "But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him." And that's a really big theme throughout the gospel and throughout the Bible is God, he rewards those who seek after him. God rewards the people who love him. I mean, he says even in Hebrews 11, faith is believing that he is. Those who have faith must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Heaven's going to be worth the wait. I mean, because we're going to be in a place of comfort. We're going to be in a place of pure joy, and we're going to be with our master. I mean, that's what heaven's all about. In Romans 8 and 18, Paul writing again here, and I imagine that Paul probably wrote a lot about heaven because he had been there, or he was there in a vision. At least he talks about how he was in a vision, But
yeah.
In Romans 8 and 18 it says, "For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us." He tells us that the things that we go through in this life are literally so much less than the glory of heaven and the joy of heaven that we're gonna basically forget it. It's they say that mothers, after they have a child, they forget the pain of having a child because they're so happy being a mother and having their child. And
which none of us will experience.
No.
But I guess I could kind of imagine that. The thought.
I can imagine having a baby.
Well, I mean, I can imagine the going through pain and trial, and then at the other side you don't even remember it because what comes after is so much better. I mean, that's really what the apostles went through. We talked about that last week, about how much they suffered, and yet at the other side, none of that mattered. because now they're home.
Yeah, I mean, in one of the more comforting verses of the Bible is in Revelation 7, verse 13 through 17. It says, and this is a vision that John is having, but he says, and one of the elders answered, saying unto me, what are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, these are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. And he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them, and shall lead them unto living fountains of water, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. That's one of my, that's one of my favorite verses. Is God's gonna wipe away. God will wipe away all of our tears whenever we're in heaven. We won't have the sorrow of lost loved ones anymore. We won't have the pain of being, mortal and on this earth. We're going to be happy, and we're going to be comforted from all the things that Satan put us through here on this earth.
Yeah. I think one of the most comforting scriptures in my mind is the ones that say, or when that talks about Judgment Day, which sounds odd, that I be comforted by being judged.
Normally scared by that.
Yeah.
You're weird.
But I mean, you think about Judgment Day, it's the day that you see Jesus for the very first time, and as Christians, he looks at us and he says, well done.
Yeah. I don't know if there's gonna be any sweeter words than that.
I mean, the thought of him even saying, well done, my good and faithful servant, enter to the joy of your Lord. I mean, after all that we deserve, after all the things that we've done to not deserve those words or what comes after, the fact that we get to experience that is so comforting, and it makes it worth this life. Whatever comes, whatever trials, tribulation, and all that, it makes it worth it to think that we're going to, I'm being repetitive here, but to think that we'll be able to see heaven one day, it's very worth it.
If we've been saved and followed him and obeyed him.
Right. Yeah.
So there is one thing that I want to talk about it's a little bit mysterious, and this is my belief on this. So, and I feel like I have, I don't just believe this because, whatever. I believe this for a reason, but I kind of believe whenever we think about think about the thief on the cross, and you think about Jesus whenever he died. He told the thief on the cross, thou shalt be with me in paradise today. And he told him that in Luke 23 and 42. He's talking to the thief on the cross, and he says, Lord, don't forget me when you come into your kingdom. And he says, I promise you're going to be in paradise with me today. So there are two different Greek words for hell. And one of them is Hades.
And Gehenna.
And the other is Gehenna. So Hades is, it's used in a way that this is the place of the dead. This is just where all the dead souls go. That's the context of the word there. Mm-hmm. And the other one, Gehenna, is used. It's kind of a little bit like Sheol, the Hebrew word in the Old Testament that it refers to the eternal place of damnation.
Okay.
So Gehenna refers to the eternal place of damnation, but they're both translated as hell in English.
English, yeah.
And it's interesting because in Acts 2 and verse 27, we can read Acts 2 and verse 27. It's really interesting to me. Sorry, let me turn there. Acts 2 and 27 says, because thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. So,
actually, in the New King James, it says, for you will not leave my soul in Hades, nor will you allow your Holy One to see corruption.
That's
so
interesting.
it just translates it like that?
Yeah.
So
what verse was that, 27?
Yeah, Acts 2 and 27. So basically what he's talking about there is he's actually quoting again a psalm, and he's talking about Jesus here. He's talking about how he will not leave your soul in hell and Hades. He's not going to leave Jesus' soul in the place of the dead. He's, obviously he was raised after the third day, and he says he's not going to suffer thine Holy One to see corruption, and what he means by that is he's not going to allow Jesus' body to, like, putrefy, basically.
Yeah.
And it didn't, as we know. But we also see that same Greek word of Hades used in Luke 16 and 25 whenever it's talking about Lazarus and the rich man. And it says that Lazarus being in hell, he was in torment and in hell, and it's that same word of Hades. So the reason I find that interesting
Lazarus or the rich man?
Sorry, the rich man was in the place of torment. I mean, they were both in hell, technically. I mean, even Jesus...
In the Hades version.
Yeah, Jesus was in Hades, but why I find that interesting is because Jesus calls it paradise. He tells the thief on the cross, you're going to be with me in paradise.
What word does he use for paradise? Is it?
It's a different word because he's talking about paradise. He doesn't say hell. You're going to be with me in hell. I mean,
that would be an interesting English translation.
But he says you're going to be with me in paradise. But so Jesus, I mean, we see from Acts 2 and verse 27 that Jesus' soul was in Hades, the same place that, well, not the same place, but a similar place as the place of the rich man. But Jesus describes it as paradise, and the rich man describes it as torment, Mm-hmm. So kind of what my belief about this, and this is, this is not necessarily like the topic of edification. I just think this is, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting thing. I recently started believing, but so he talks about how, like, I've always believed that heaven and hell are two distinct places, but before we get there, there's like a waiting place, and I believe that because these scriptures seem to indicate that, with like how there's a Greek word for Hades, and there's a Greek word for the lake of fire, eternal damnation,
and just the way it talks about death in general throughout the Bible as a rest or like a sleep or a waiting. That I feel like that also kind of adds to that indication.
So in Mark 9 and 43, it's just kind of a retelling of something we've already read about entering into life halt or maimed. And Jesus says it's better to enter into life halt or maimed than your whole body to be cast into hell. And the word he uses there as hell is Gehenna, which is the eternal...
Mark 9?
Yeah, Mark 9 and 43.
43, okay.
Yeah, so he uses the word Gehenna there, which is the eternal damnation version. So I've always kind of believed that there's a waiting place, one of paradise and one of torment.
I think Scripture lines that out pretty clearly, that there is a place before death where you await Judgment Day, and it's where Lazarus and the rich man went. Lazarus went to the good side, Abraham's bosom. The rich man went to the bad side, the place of torment. But they're waiting there. That's not
right
where Jesus is now.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, Jesus was there whenever he was in the grave.
He's not there now.
He's not there now, right.
Because it actually says in, I think, Acts, it says that Jesus ascended to heaven and sat at the right hand of his Father. So he's not in Hades today.
Right.
Still.
Jesus is in heaven. He is with God. He is with the Father. So that is important to know.
I can easily see how this would create controversy, because you can ask a lot of people, and there's a lot of, like, it's very frequent to hear, like, I'm going to die and go straight to heaven, or die and go straight to hell,
Right.
And also it's interesting to think about, like, if there's a good waiting place and bad waiting place, if you get there, are you aware,
Yes.
Or
Lazarus
if you get to the good place and you think, oh, well, I'm going to heaven after this because I'm not on the other side of that.
Right.
Or, like, I don't know. It's really interesting, but one disclaimer that we might make is, again, we are not scholars. We are not. Our word is not scripture. So please take these thoughts and look at your own Bible, and do these studies for yourself, and come up with your own, and refer to other people who might be more knowledgeable or might have spent more time studying it. Look into the words, look into the Greek, and really try to study that out and come up with your own idea from your own study. Don't just take what we say, because, like we said, we're not perfect. And this is just from the things that we've studied. I would encourage, if you do study those things out and you think that there's something we said that was wrong, please bring it to us. and let's talk about it, or let's study it out together and try to have a better understanding together. What we're not trying to say that everything we say is exactly correct. We're just talking about it and from our own study and knowledge. So
Well, I mean, we do try to be pretty much exactly correct.
Right,
I mean,
right.
We try to be.
we don't want to.
And I think so far we have been with the waiting place, and as far as my understanding of the scriptures is concerned, there is a waiting place of Hades, and there is eternal after Judgment Day, eternal heaven and eternal hell, Gehenna. And Caleb touched on an interesting subject of whether or not you know, and I think you do know based on the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man obviously knew he was in torment. And it's something interesting that he did that kind of strikes me as odd. He never once asked if he could change over to the other side.
Yeah, he did try to get his brothers out. Well, not get at him out, but he tried to warn. He wanted to warn his brothers.
Right.
Yeah, like you're talking about, that's interesting that he knew there's no going back. There's no changing this. I'm here and it's done.
Yeah.
So
he knew what was awaiting him what is awaiting him on Judgment Day, and there's nothing he could do to change that. So not only is he in torment right now, but he's going to get it worse later on.
yeah, I've had more than one argument about this exact parable, not parable. You know, it's interesting that it's the only, in quotes, parable that uses a name, whereas other parables don't use names to define the characters.
Right.
And it's really not known whether it is or isn't a parable. I think that's kind of interesting. And, you know, also, there's a lot of things that are kind of confusing about that. Like, if you die and you go to the waiting place and you still have that knowledge and you're still aware and you know, oh, I'm in the good place and I'm going to heaven after this, what's the point of Judgment Day? Like, why are you still going to be judged after that?
I take it to mean that Judgment Day is when it's actually confirmed for you. I mean, you know where you're going in Hades, and then Judgment Day is the confirmation and where all your sins are laid out before him, where Jesus is saying, you actually are with me or you're not with me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's while you're already separated and you already know where you're going, it's the day that it's decided.
Mm-hmm.
And truth be told, like, you know, some of this is conjecture. I believe it because of the reason we talked about and the different words and the different verses that we read, but I'm not going to really know until I'm dead.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I think overall, it's important to remember that one way or another, if there is a waiting place or there isn't a waiting place, you know, there's only two options. And, you know, for people who know Christ and who know God and who live their life for Him, you know, how awesome is it that we're going to be in paradise? You know, Jesus uses the word paradise, and that's the only word that we can ascribe to it.
And he was talking about Hades.
Yeah, he was talking about Hades. I mean, so think about how much better a place that God is going to build that Jesus is going to build for us. I mean, he said, "I go to prepare a place for you." Like, I go to prepare a place. That's pretty incredible to think about Jesus making a place for us. I mean, he made this earth. Think about all the beautiful things on this earth. Think about, you know, like, there's these amazing vistas, like mountain ranges, and I mean, even the desert can be beautiful at times, and winter, you know, whenever the snow is just like, you know, perfectly, you know, nobody's stepped on it, nothing has touched it, how beautiful that can be. And that's just the earth, you know.
And we think of that as like, wow, you know, like you said, those beautiful vistas, that's truly beautiful, but it's not even comparable. Doesn't he say, like, we can't comprehend the...
Yeah, we read that, 2 Corinthians.
Oh, did we? Sorry.
But to kind of end on this one note, another really uplifting verse from Revelations, because Revelations was written to these churches in Asia that were about to undergo some trials, and it's got a lot of really uplifting verses in it. In Revelations 2 and 8, it says, "And unto the angel of the church in Smyrna write, These things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life." He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. That's really comforting to think about. Jesus himself telling you, don't be afraid of what's about to come, because if you endure this short thing, you'll be with me, and I'm going to give you an everlasting crown of life. I've gotten I've gotten emotional thinking sometimes about like when people talk about how when we get to heaven, we're all going to cast our crowns in front of Jesus' feet. I've gotten emotional thinking about that image that we're going to get to experience if we'll just suffer through this little stuff that we have to suffer through here and live a committed life to him.
And so often we forget that, and we get grounded on this earth and caught up in the things of it. But how great a thought that we need to have in our mind and at the top of our heart, filling our heart, that's waiting for us if we'll continue.
And he's waiting for us if we'll stay true.
And why such a powerful thing do we still forget it from time to time, And that's kind of one point that I wanted to make was that's kind of the point of like doing stuff like this podcast is that keep your mind on it, keep studying, keep praying, keep talking to Christians, and keep yourself in that mindset. Keep yourself on fire for God. Keep yourself in the one true way, and don't waver from it, because what's at the end of that road, as long as you don't vary off on another road, which we do sometimes do.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway from the main takeaway every time I study heaven and think about heaven is I may not know everything about it. I may not know what it's going to look like, what it's going to smell like, what it's going to, I don't know all that.
Like we talked about, we don't even know exactly what the doggy door looks like.
Right. But I know that Jesus is going to be there. I know that the pain is going to be done, and we're just going to be able to, we're going to be able to see Jesus. We're going to be able to be near God and to sing his praises to him directly. I love, whenever we're in church and we're singing and you hear like one of your favorite songs. I love that. I think about how much better it's going to be with a chorus of angels and singing it directly to God, being able to see him and telling him those things in song. It's going to be an amazing, amazing thing.
In the most unfathomably beautiful and amazing place ever. Yeah. I was thinking about that earlier today. Like, it's interesting that sometimes you have that want to be with Christians and to sing songs when you're not around your brothers and sisters and you're not singing, and you think, I wish I could be doing that right now instead. And in heaven, like you said, we'll have that opportunity to do that forever, always, all the time, which is, there won't be, I have to go to work now. I need to go to sleep. I need to, anything like that. It's all 24/7, always praising God, always with Christians and Jesus and God and angels. I think that's kind of awesome.
I love sleeping, so
maybe just
maybe a little sleep,
couple naps.
No, but I think as we round this latest episode off, just basically the main overall takeaways are, keep doing what you're doing as a Christian. Keep fighting for it, because heaven is worth it. It is the goal of our life, and Jesus is going to be there. So, my name is Ryan.
My name is Isaac.
And my name is Caleb, and this is the King's Advocate podcast, signing off.